What up, guys? Welcome to the Son of Wanda. We have a ton of superhero movies coming out this year. Given that, I figured I'd give you guys my top 10 list of my absolute favorite superhero movies. And I'm excited to see if any of the superhero movies that come out this year will be in this top 10 list by the time the year is over. So let's conversationalize. Starting off at number 10, we have Batman Mask of the Phantasm. It is based off Batman the Animated Series. It's a movie based in the world of that show with all the same voice cast. It is freaking phenomenal. It's got the emotion, like the voice cast is so good. It's everything that makes Batman the Animated Series the greatest Batman thing of all time is in this movie, which makes it one of the best Batman things of all time. So just period. And also Mark Hamill Joker is in it, so you can't complain. But no, this movie, its story is so compelling. And you really feel like you're taking on a journey with Bruce, especially with Bruce Wayne, as Batman, finding or rediscovering the love of his life from long past that almost made him not be Batman. And it's got like his origins in there of how he started out. And it's really fun to see like proto-Batman or initial Batman, like Batman before he was Batman. Like, what did that look like? And it was very similar to Batman Begins, like a ski mask, and not specific until later. So it has, again, all the feels, phenomenal voice cast. The story is very compelling, that journey with Bruce Wayne that you follow him on. Everything about it is just so awesome and wonderful and amazing. Next up, speaking of which, number 9, 2 Batman movies in a row, Batman Begins. Batman Begins is... Christopher Nolan is my favorite director, period. End of story. All-time favorite director. So, if you take one of my favorite superheroes of all time, if not my second favorite next to Spider-Man, Batman, and give him to Christopher Nolan, you're going to have amazing, amazing, prosperous things in your future. And that's exactly what happened with this movie. I mean, the way they do the origin story, the way they incorporate Ra's al Ghul into it, the way that Liam Neeson plays Ra's al Ghul, in my opinion, Liam Neeson is the best interpretation of Ra's al Ghul. By far. And I think some people have problems with Scarecrow in this movie. I don't see why, really. Like, Cillian Murphy is so good as Scarecrow. It's just like, he is so dramatic and scary. He's like a scary looking person when he's so good at playing villainous roles. So he can just look at you and make you feel disturbed somehow. So it's just really impressive. It's raining outside, if you couldn't tell. There's like a storm going on. But another thing this movie's awesome at doing is keeping you on the edge of your seat. Like, it's telling you Bruce Wayne's backstory, and it's telling you Batman's backstory at the same time. In fact, it's something I just thought about. Which, again, the genius of Christopher Nolan, there's layers to his genius. You just pull one back, there's another one right there, waiting for you. Literally, Bruce Wayne, as a kid, his parents die, he grows up, tries to kill the guy who killed his parents, but he gets beat to the punch by the mob, and so he kind of has this existential crisis, sort of, and then he goes away, leaves Gotham to go find his own path. Then, simultaneously running with that, you have the backstory of Batman. So, it's how he comes to the League of Shadows, and gets inducted into their order and taught all the ways to be a master at fighting crime. A master of the criminal mind. Like, everything that Batman does is to fight criminals. And the ultimate precipice of that is Joker, his criminal mind. And so, this movie is about him learning how to figure out these things and execute it in the best way possible. And I'm not really a Keaton guy. Christian Bale is my favorite Batman, so his moment where he gets to rip Falcone from the roof of a freaking car and just violently proclaim to his face, "I'm Batman," and then headbutts him is one of the best moments ever. Okay, we're on to number 8. So you may be wondering why it's still on Batman Begins. Well, I kind of want to just prepare you guys for what's coming in at number 8. I'm a little scared. The next, few sprinkled throughout the list are a little bit, questionable, but we're going to get to it. That's not right. Yes, you are seeing correctly. Your eyes do not deceive you. The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Now, I know what a lot of you are probably thinking. I can never watch your channel ever again. You are a disgrace to comic books, to superheroes, and your channel should be canceled. You should never be allowed to film anything else in your life, ever. My answer to that would be, I like this movie a lot. And I'm the only person that does. I'm like, my mom does. She loves it. She loves it with me loving it. I think this movie is so much better than people give it credit for. But I think the main thing that I love about this movie, the two main things, everybody hates Electro. I love Electro. The first scene where he's in Times Square and he's all blue and he's like lightning everything out and going crazy, and you hear like that song, like he lied to me. Like, some people consider it corny and hammy. I think it's just awesome. It's just Electro is weirdly my favorite Marvel villain, and I'm probably the only person on the planet that will say that. But to see him in live action portrayed in that way is just so awesome. So cool on so many levels. Just him lightning and everything, battling Spider-Man in the way that he is, getting all raged up. It's just so sweet. It's just sick, and all of the teenage lingo. But the other thing that really elevates this movie for me is Peter Parker's, like, that emotion you get in the midst of all of it. Because he's realizing that he probably should have kept his promise to Gwen's dad about not being in her life. He's trying to find more stuff out about his parents, about what happened with their deaths and why they ran away when he was a kid. And so he's dealing with all of these things. And you can tell it's like dragging him down more and more and more throughout the movie until he realizes the truth about his parents, which is uplifting. And then he gets Gwen back from dumping her, like, you know, proves to her that he just wants to be with her no matter what that means. Even maybe if he even has to give up Spider-Man. And then by the end of it, major spoilers, she dies. She dies. At the hands of his best friend. And so you have all of this emotional conflict. And this journey that Spider-Man goes through of, like, it's kind of what Green Goblin talks to Peter about in No Way Home. It's like he's struggling to have everything he wants while the world has to try to make him choose. It's that kind of journey. It's like, I want this, and I want this, and I want to be there for Harry, and I want to be there for Gwen, but I need to figure out what happened to my parents. It's important to me. I just have to know all of these things, and then he loses it all. And I think the best part about this movie is that he comes back from that. He does not let it destroy the Spider-Man side of him, the responsibility side of him. At the end of the day, he realizes how meaningful Gwen was to his life in a way that wasn't like romantic. It was just her genuine friendship. It's like the wisdom that she had, as well as the wisdom that was shown to him by Uncle Ben. Like, all of those things come in a culmination of his, like, my destiny is Spider-Man. That's who I am. And Electro makes for such an epic villain to combat all of that. This movie, I love it, even though nobody else does. I even like Rhino. Again, don't hate me. Just don't hate me. But I do love this movie. Next up, number 7. A lot of you are probably going to have a much better opinion of this than from the last pick. Captain America, the First Avenger. Now, most of you would probably put Civil War or Winter Soldier on this list. I put Captain America, the First Avenger. I think it's because I love period pieces, and this movie is the perfect superhero period piece combination. Like, because Captain America started out in the 40s, they didn't decide to just modernize him, as they're trying to do with so many different characters now. They let him start in the 40s. And they used that as a story point moving forward in the MCU, which was such a brilliant idea. And they nailed that 40s aesthetic. Because I love the 40s era and all the different old-fashioned things in that era. And so, seeing it, what I love, that kind of aesthetic in a superhero movie, and integrated so well, is just so rewarding. Like, just to see it all, it's just so cool, that entire feel of the movie. As well as, like, it's got some great comedy with Abraham Erskine. Like, he's a very likable character, and he's also a very wise character. Like, the conversation that he has with Steve before he takes the super soldier serum the next day there's a lot of profound stuff in there of how, like, good becomes great and bad becomes worth. Bad becomes worth. Apparently, I'm Daffy Duck. Bad becomes worth when he's talking about the super soldier serum and the effects it has on people. And it did. Like, Red Skull became worse. Like, bad became worse with Red Skull, and then good became great with Captain America. And I love the parallels of those two, the protagonist and the antagonist in this movie, especially Cap and Red Skull. And Hugo Weaving, good gosh, his performance is so awesome. Just from that, like, the second opening scene, the movie has like 5,000 of them, the second opening scene where he first gets the Tesseract, and just has that whole monologue, and he's so crazy, but and so evil, but he's so good at it. That's just the vibe you get from Hugo Weaving. And Hugo Weaving is like one of my favorite actors. He's just phenomenal. But Steve Rogers, his whole story of, like, proving he's not a wimp at heart. He is, even though he's a smaller man than all the men around him, he still has a bigger heart than all of the men around him combined. And seeing him prove that, as well as come to, like, get as big as his heart is with the super soldier serum, is so cool to see play out. Also has a great sacrifice in the end, and I don't think they could have done it in any of a more heartbreaking and better way than him crashing the ship, not having that dance with Peggy, falling asleep for 70 years, and being told he fell asleep for 70 years. That whole story is just like edge of your seat, like, wow, yes, that just happened. Solid film. Ooh, this is a bad one. All right, here we go. I'm laying it all out on the line. Now, I cannot guarantee many things in life. What I can guarantee, beyond a shadow of a doubt, is that you will never even be able to fathom or guess what is the next movie on my list. Don't worry, it's not Batman and Robin. I don't like that movie, but some of you might consider it just as bad. That's right, I did it. Fight me. Come on. I will fight you through the camera if you want me to. Come on, fight me. But in all seriousness, I actually think this is a genuinely good film. But nobody else agrees with me, again, except my mom. She's very loving, and she loves both of these movies, the Spider-Man 3 and Amazing Spider-Man 2. I thoroughly love this one. And I will say, I think the reason that it's on this list especially, a lot of it is nostalgia. Because unironically enough, or more so ironically enough, when I was a kid, I watched the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man trilogy for the first time, and I actually didn't like the first or the second one. Main reason being, I see Norman dying, and I see Ock's arms going nuts in the first two Spider-Man movies. I freak out, I cry, I don't want anything to do with it. I see Venom roaring in my face with his insanely sharp fangs and his beady eyes that are lifeless, and I say, he's awesome, that's so cool, he's like my favorite character now, like that guy's so, like, you see him like jump and he loves the suit and all that, that's crazy, man. That's my reaction. Makes perfect sense in my opinion. But no, I think the main reason that I love this movie is the story of forgiveness. And again, a lot of you might roll your eyes, but I'm being dead serious. Spider-Man, even though there's like a bunch of villains in this movie, I think it actually all blends together really well. Unlike everybody else's opinion on it. Because everybody else hates this movie. But I think that the way they do it in this movie works really well because, again, like in Amazing Spider-Man 2, even though there's a lot of stuff going on, Spider-Man is still taken on one singular journey. And that is overcoming his newfound fame and arrogance. And he realizes that, like, he's strong and he's a superhero and people are starting to love him now. And it's sort of already getting to his head. Then the symbiote comes along and then just ruins everything. And you got Sandman, who he discovers was the actual person who killed his uncle, messing with his emotions on all fronts. And the symbiote in this movie seems like his way of escape. It's the Satan lie. It's like, you don't have the things you need to fix your problems right now. You just need more power. You just need more control. Then you'll be able to fix all the things you want to fix. Not good. Then he realizes all the horrible things he's done with the symbiote and realizes he needs to get it off. Then Sandman comes clean. And he admits that killing Uncle Ben was technically an accident. And he never wanted any of these bad things to happen. He just wants to save his daughter. And Spider-Man. I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. Don't roll your eyes. I'm telling you. Spider-Man, who his whole motivation for being Spider-Man in the first place was because Uncle Ben died. He thought that it was his fault, and he needed to rectify that. He realized that with great power came great responsibility, and he chose to use that for good, but he was still so torn up about it when it happened and angry. He comes to the person who caused all of the harm in his life, so much of the trouble by killing Uncle Ben, and he says, I forgive you. I've done some terrible things in my life as well. I'm going to let go of the bitterness and the strife that I have against you for killing my father, basically, and forgive you. Single tear. That, to me, is one of the most emotional scenes in superhero movies. And people do not give this story enough credit. They see the Peter Parker dance moves, and they're like, oh, it's so cheesy and dumb. But they don't look past that to see what the actual meat of the story is. It's not the fact that there's 1,000 villains. It's not the fact that he's dancing around Peter Parker all jazzy and whatnot. It's the fact that he's willing to forgive the unforgivable. And I'm a Christian, and I think that resonates with me more because of that. So much of what Jesus did for us was about forgiveness. Forgiveness of sins when he died on the cross. And I feel like this is such a beautiful picture of that in this movie shown by Spider-Man to Sandman. And it's a comic book movie, it's a Spider-Man movie, yet still, there's so much meat to that. And it will never not make me more and more invested in the story, more and more emotional, just because there's that parallel of like Jesus, despite all the things we've done, forgiving us. And then this one guy who destroyed Peter's entire life, Peter chose to forgive him. Amazing. Now I get to one of the more popular entries on this list, and that is Spider-Man No Way Home. Now, as much as I love Spider-Man 3, which, again, that sentence nobody's going to agree with, except my mother, this movie actually ended up taking the top spot of Spider-Man 3, and yes, I actually genuinely think that Spider-Man 3 was the best Spider-Man movie before this. This movie took the top spot. I think it's because it takes a lot of what I love about Spider-Man 3, and a ton of what I love about Amazing Spider-Man 2, and Tom Holland's very specific iteration of Spider-Man, his own Spider-Man that's still really good, the world of the MCU, the world building of the MCU, and puts it all together and amplifies it like 10 times. And it's funny because Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin in the first Spider-Man movie is really good and really creepy and scary. But in this movie, he like dials it to 11. I genuinely think he should have won an Oscar. That might be overdoing it, overstating it, but that's how good I think his specific performance is in this movie. He is just so good at being evil. There's a reason why everybody wants to cast Willem Dafoe as the Joker. He's just so darn good at being bad. Like, he can crack that evil, sinister smile, and you just pee your pants by default. You crap and pee simultaneously because of how scary and nuts that guy is, and then he just starts throwing Spider-Man through walls, and it's just like, what the mess? And other than like what might seem gimmicky of like bringing on all the past villains and then all the past, spoilers, Spider-Mans, live-action Spider-Mans, and bringing them all together, it might seem gimmicky to some people, but there is an actual story that they told with it that is told with this that is very meaningful. Really revolving around, again, with great power comes great responsibility story, and it's a story and a lesson that the Tom Holland iteration of Peter Parker hadn't fully learned yet up to this point in the MCU. Not in the way that we knew him to learn it previously in the other Spider-Man movies. And the fact that they not only gave Tom Holland that story in this movie in a new and interesting way, with Aunt May dying instead of Uncle Ben, the fact that they allowed Andrew Spider-Man and Tobey Spider-Man to help him with that story, to aid him in learning the lesson of with great power comes great responsibility, is just like, it's one of the best case scenarios you ever could have set up in superhero movies. In Spider-Man movies especially. It's the best case scenario. And they're facing all of the threats that brought them to the places they are in the first place. Which is even more poetic. And even more of a perfect story circle. And the moment where Tobey grabs the glider, keeps it away from Goblin, and doesn't allow Tom to kill him, it's just that's that moment. The picture's worth 1,000 words. This is a story of redemption, basically. No Way Home is. It's a story of redemption of all the Spider-Man arcs combined. And it's amazing how 40 minutes of a movie can make it one of the best movies of all time. That's exactly what this movie did. It is awesome. But number 4 on the list, strangely enough, is actually my favorite MCU movie, which is the First Avengers. As much as I am a Spider-Man fan, lots of rain going on out there. As much as I am a Spider-Man fan, he is my favorite superhero. There's something about the First Avengers, especially my first theater viewing of the First Avengers. There was something about seeing all of my beloved Marvel characters in live action together from the different iterations presented by the previous movies, iterations of which I loved, presented all together, fighting together as one. It's just, it's something special. It's a treasure to me. And that might sound weird, but genuinely is. Because again, it's like all these iterations. Again, I love Chris Hemsworth Thor, the first one. I love the first Captain America, obviously. I love the first Iron Man. I love the first Hulk, and even though it's still not Edward Norton, whatever. Seeing all of them interact and having the best banter as superheroes, just being absolute jerks to one another, not understanding each other at all, and somehow still just being the best team. It's just so fun. It's not superficial. It's still meaningful to me because of just the genuine feel of them being a team together. And that climax, like Loki's the perfect villain for the first Avengers movie because Thor already set him up. They didn't need to waste 30 minutes or however long in this movie setting up Loki, presenting this new character if he hadn't been presented in Thor already, trying to set him up as the bad guy, explain everything. It was already explained, and they just used that to fuel more story in this movie. It was so genius the way they laid out Phase 1 especially. I feel like almost Phase 1 was the best planned arc in the whole MCU. I think largely it was because it was when the MCU was at its most humble. Like, we don't know if this is going to work, but if it does, it's going to be awesome. The Avengers was kind of the ceiling of the deal. It's like, no, yeah, this is awesome. We love it. Give us more. And they did. And this movie is just, to me, will always be the best MCU movie because it's the movie that let everybody know how good this could get if you did it right. Especially the superhero team-ups. If you can bring the superheroes to as grand of a scale as this, and you do it well, you get great results. And that's the summary of this movie. The charisma of all the actors, the interactions between all the characters, and the phenomenal acting by Tom Hiddleston as the bad guy, Samuel L. Jackson and Coulson being like the glue of it all, bonds and blends so perfectly. But coming in at number 3, Man of Steel. Now again, you might disagree with me on this one, but I have my reasons. When I was 10 years old, or around that age, my dad worked at this place called the School of Worship, and he taught drums. He was a drummer, and I was in the car outside, and he came out and was like putting stuff in the back of the car, and he was singing da 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 da. And I had known that a new Superman movie was coming out, and I did want to see it, but it wasn't registering to me what he was trying to do there. So he surprised me by taking me to the theater to go see Man of Steel in 2013, which is the year my little brother was born. So there's so many good memories that year. But I see that movie in theater for the first time, and from the get-go, Russell Crowe Jor-El, all the Krypton stuff, you got giant spaceships and giant flying space aliens, and such an epic way to introduce Krypton as well as begin the movie. Russell Crowe's my favorite Jor-El. I love him as Jor-El so much. He was perfect casting choice. But then you have the non-linear storytelling, which is something Christopher Nolan is known for, which he wrote this movie if you didn't know that. But or he helped write it. But the non-linear storytelling, that way of doing Superman stories specifically, very interesting way and cool way to do it. Him being a wanderer and not really fitting in anywhere, and then finding his place as Superman finally, and taking that first flight. It's just so good. Also the lessons that his father teach him, I really appreciate. His Earth father, not Jor-El. I mean, Jor-El also teaches him great lessons too, but specifically the lesson of the tornado. And I think we need more stories about dads, being actual fathers, because I feel like that's being frowned upon lately, and I really want more of that. Don't know why people are so against it sometimes. But that part is great. Michael Shannon as General Zod is awesome. One of the standout scenes for me in this movie is right after Superman has destroyed all of Zod's plans, and Zod is just on his knees in the ash from the ships, and he's just like, my sole purpose in life is to protect Krypton. That's the reason that I was born. And you've taken that from me. You've made it to where I have no Krypton. Like, you've taken my soul from me. You still don't like him. Like, at all. You still want him to go down. But you get his perspective in that scene. You understand why he's doing all the evil things he's doing. Such a well-written way of doing a villain, specifically Zod. Like, he wasn't really fleshed out that much in the Christopher Reeve Superman. This he is. And I love the way they did that so much. But another way I can tell you how much I love this movie, when I walked out of the theater after seeing it with my dad, I loved it so much, I was into the movie so much, that I said some pretty blasphemous words. I told my father, throw Marvel in the recycling center. Those were my exact words to him after seeing that movie. And that's how much I loved it. And it's funny because after I had said that, I was like, oh, dang, I feel so bad. I would never want to throw Marvel in the recycling center. But these days, the way their movies are going and the way they're kind of going in general, I might be leaning toward that more again. But we'll see. Maybe they'll have some good stuff coming. Hopefully. But yes, I love Man of Steel so much. Love it, love it, love it. Phenomenal film. But next up, the big guns. Dark Knight Rises. Now again, a lot of people have problems with this movie. They say there's plot holes and all this stuff. I do not care. I don't care at all. Like, not even a little bit. Whatever. This is one of the greatest movies of all time. It's in my top 10 greatest movies of all time. That's how much I regard... That's the standard I hold this movie to. It is amazing. Bane is one of the greatest movie villains of all time. I don't care what anybody says. His voice is incredibly iconic.
Oh, you think darkness is your ally? You merely adopted the dark. I was born in it, molded by it.
My dad was the best imitator of Bane's voice. He would get like a Pringles can and talk into an empty Pringles can to magnify the effect, like for that echo, and it was phenomenal. My dad just did the best Bane voice. But no, he's one of the greatest villains ever. Batman's story in this specifically, about coming out of retirement, realizing that Gotham still needs him, realizing that Gotham still needs the symbol of Batman, which is why he created Batman in the first place, like in Batman Begins, and then passing that on to the next generation, passing that on to Robin, to Joseph Gordon-Levitt's police officer. That aspect, again, just makes for such a phenomenal everything. Also, by far, Anne Hathaway is my favorite Catwoman. By far. Then they do the Nightfall storyline where Bane breaks Batman's back, and Batman has to come back from that. He's like put in the pit and rises out of the pit. So much good, awesome stuff in this movie. Like, get up and cheer moments, especially, like, one of my favorite moments in the entire movie is the Battle of the Armies at the end of it. And it's just all-out war with Batman and Bane at the helms. Just like every Batman fan's dream, basically. Like, Batman leading an army of policemen and Bane leading an army of thugs, just duking it out. Again, all-out war. That is exactly what you want to see. Also, Michael Caine's acting is just tearjerker. The ending of this movie is one of the best superhero movie endings of all time. One of really the best movie endings of all time, where it leaves it ambiguous, but you know in your heart that Batman, he survived and he's living a life with Selina, with Catwoman, but just everything about it. The opening plane sequence, all that stuff. Edge of your seat thrills. Christopher Nolan always delivers. It's amazing, amazing, amazing. But coming in at number 1, my favorite superhero movie in all the land of all time. You guys know it. Dark Knight. Duh. It should be everybody's favorite superhero movie of all time. And it is largely everybody's favorite superhero movie of all time. And there is a reason for that. You have arguably the greatest protagonist of all time across all of fiction. And then you have arguably the greatest antagonist of all time across all of fiction. Batman, Joker, Clash of the Titans. Clash. Like, in the truest sense of the word. Clash of the Titans. This movie, again, we're talking about edge of your seat thrills from Dark Knight Rises. This movie takes that and gives it cocaine. I mean, the sheer intensity of this film, the way it comes at you, the way it starts with the first bank heist, that already just makes you go, oh, wait, which one is Joker? Oh, no, that one is. And then dominoes fall throughout the rest of the movie. And it's amazing because I think this is the best case scenario of when you have more than one villain, Joker and Two-Face. Because the main villain of the movie, Joker, is creating the secondary villain of the movie who makes arguably the biggest impact on the next film as the movie's playing out. It is such genius writing structure, like planning out your story. And they didn't even really plan to make a third one. And yet, Christopher Nolan had already put the pieces in place for the third one, which is also phenomenal. But this one just revs everything you love about Batman and Joker up to the max. Heath Ledger's performance, good gosh. Greatest, I would say, genuinely, of movie villains, it is the best movie villain performance of all time. I'm not even talking about superhero movies. I think that is the best movie villain performance of all time. Period. There is nothing to not love about this movie. It just creates this ball of glory. And the ending, good gosh, the ending. It's funny because it's a Batman movie. It's a dark movie. You wouldn't think you get any, virtuous, feel-good lessons from it. But I do. At the end of this movie, Batman decides to take the fall for Harvey Dent as Two-Face's actions. He decides to do that. To become the person that everybody hates. For the sake of the rest of the people in Gotham. He turns what Joker meant for evil on its head. I can do those things because I'm not a hero. Sometimes the truth isn't good enough. Sometimes the people deserve more. Sometimes the people deserve to have their faith rewarded. That entire speech that Batman and Gordon give at the end of that movie, it really is single tier because, like I said, I'm a Christian. When you think about what Jesus did for us, dying on the cross, taking all of our sin on the cross, he became the person that nobody liked. He became the person that everybody hated. He sacrificed not just his body, but his reputation, his status as the benevolent prophet, to have people spit on him and whip him and crucify him, just so we would be protected and saved. Does that sound familiar? That is basically what Batman does at the end of this movie. I think it is a phenomenal echo of that. Batman taking in all of the weight of the wrongdoings of Two-Face. Put him on himself and said, hate me. Set the dogs on me. Hunt me. Because that's what needs to happen. Because for the sake of Gotham, to save Gotham, I have to be the bad guy. He was willing to sacrifice his status, his reputation as the protector of Gotham, as the hero of Gotham, to save Gotham. And that is such a poetic and powerful story, and makes it, for me, my favorite superhero movie of all time. But I've talked a lot about superhero movies, and I've also talked a lot about my faith, so I would just like to sit here and say, real quick, if you would like to know more about Jesus and accept him into your heart, please do it. And it's not going to be an easy life if you do. I'm going to be fully honest with you. It's not easy. I'm not here to tell you following Jesus is like rainbows and ponies and unicorns and it's going to be fruit all day and fun times. It ain't. In fact, your life might seem harder if you accept Jesus. But the beauty about going through life with Jesus is that you have him. And it's something you only truly know what it means if you have him. Because all that baggage inside of you, you feel we're weighed down, he can release all of that. And the only thing he asks in return is you being with him. He's not forceful. He's not tyrannical. He's not overbearing. His love for you is, I've used this word a lot, and unfathomable. Unfathomable. And the lessons I feel that are taught in these movies, like I've just said, I've just described, are important. And I think it's a really cool way to teach them. A lot of people don't realize how so many movies, especially superhero movies, end up having through lines in their movies about biblical principles. And a lot of people don't realize that these are biblical principles. They want to hate on the Bible, but they don't realize that so much of the stuff they love ends up teaching lessons that are in the Bible. I just think that's ironic. But I think it should lead more people to Christ when they fully realize what kind of lessons these movies teach. So, thank you guys for watching. Have a very blessed day. May the Lord be with you. May the force be with you. Goodbye.